Thanks for visiting our channel again. They included Richard Grieco. He was a bad boy star who enthralled millions of admirers and was once Johnny Depp's direct opponent. Suddenly, it seemed as if time stood still. His undertakings were a complete and utter flop, and his career took a nosedive. Then came the rumors of excessive drinking, a carefree lifestyle, and incredibly unkempt public appearances that shocked admirers to no end. What transpired to turn this Hollywood A-lister into a forgotten name? Could he have been a victim of the system, or had he destroyed himself? No one has ever managed to put a finger on Richard Grieco. However, we intend to seek the truth this time around. The son of Italian and Irish immigrants, Richard John Grieco Jr. came into this world in Watertown, New York on March 23, 1965. Along with his brother David and sisters Elizabeth and Laura, he spent his childhood in the little town of Dexter. His parents, Richard Grieco Sr. and Carolyn Grieco, taught him discipline and the value of a steady job because their family was poor. Because of his self-assured personality and good appearance, Grieco has an innate charm even as a young boy. He was an exceptional man even in a sleepy community. During his time at General Brown High School, Grieco was a standout football player. There was high anticipation for his professional career when he showed promise as a center and cornerback. He commanded attention on the field with his powerful physical attributes and intense fighting attitude. He was well regarded by coaches for his leadership skills, courage, and unwavering commitment to the squad. In addition to his love of athletics, Grieco devoted a great deal of time to painting, allowing his emotions rather than his technical skills to guide his creations. This wasn't some light pastime. In the future, it would play a major role in his life. In his pursuit of a professional football career, Grieco persisted even after enrolling at Central Connecticut State University. A major injury, however, put an immediate end to all of it. He became mired in self-doubt after being unable to pursue his sports career. Suddenly, a chance presented itself. An elite model management scout noticed him while he was in New York. Quickly signed as a model, Grieco possessed ideal height, a captivating charisma, and good beauty. Armani, Calvin Klein, Chanel, and other major labels quickly adopted him as their face. Grieco wasn't content to rest on her laurels after finding success in the fashion sector. Even though he became famous and wealthy as a model, he was still unfulfilled. Acting was his true passion. He decided he needed a change of direction. So he started auditioning for acting studios in New York and attended night lessons. Playing Rick Gardner in the soap drama One Life to Live in 1985 was his big break. Although he only had a little part to begin with, his stellar performance secured him a recurrent role all the way through 1987. Grieco made a daring choice after realizing this was his chance to transform his life. In order to focus on acting full-time, he quit modeling. Choosing it was daring. However, Grieco demonstrated its correctness in a matter of years. He went from being a shy kid from a tiny town with big dreams of being a professional athlete to becoming one of the most attractive male celebrities of the 1980s in no time. His reign at the top wouldn't be permanent, though, because celebrity doesn't come easily. Grieco transformed a fortuitous contact with the fashion industry into the initial springboard for his career. He was anything but ordinary, what with his angular face, piercing stare, and defiant attitude. Not everyone possessed his unique charisma and menacing charm, but he brought it. That is precisely why he was the standout choice for prominent commercial campaigns by labels such as Armani, Calvin Klein, and Chanel. Although Grieco was showered with attention and money, he never considered fashion to be his ultimate aim. Grieco started taking acting classes and going on auditions in New York after realizing his good looks may get him into Hollywood. It was his mission to disprove the notion that a model could ever make it as an actor. The 1985 daytime serial program One Life to Live gave him his big break when he was cast as Rick Gardner. Despite the supporting role, he wowed audiences with his commanding presence, effortless acting, and commanding screen presence. As a result of the audience's increasing liking for him, his originally planned short stay extended into a 2-year commitment. He left One Life to live another, and it took him a while to find his footing. With nothing more than his good looks and dogged persistence, he was able to get into the industry. However, luck was on his side in 1988 when he tried out for the hit TV show 21 Jump Street. With Johnny Depp's star power now established, the third season saw the addition of Grieco, adding even more pressure to an already difficult situation. However, he managed to give his character a unique voice and not let Depp steal the show. Young viewers were captivated by his portrayal of Detective Dennis Booker, an anti-authority undercover cop known for his long hair, leather jackets, and carefree demeanor. He was the polar opposite of Johnny Depp's more subdued performance since he played by his own rules, had conflicts with both bosses and co-workers, and generally stood out. Grieco rose from relative obscurity to become a new 1980s manly icon in the span of a few short months. Fans of 21 Jump Street were so enthralled by his entrance that they formed two factions, Team Depp and Team Grieco. Fox saw potential in Dennis Booker, so they offered Grieco a spin-off series of his own, giving him an even greater opportunity. No one could have foreseen that this moment, at the height of Richard Grieco's success, would set in motion a series of events that would change the course of his career irrevocably. During the third season of 21 Jump Street in 1988, when Johnny Depp was one of Hollywood's most famous young actors and the show was airing non-stop, Richard Grieco became a cast member. However, Grieco's entrance wasn't merely intended to enhance the ensemble. It was crafted to jolt things into motion and introduce a genuine antagonist to Johnny Depp. Fox was looking for an unconventional undercover detective with charisma and charisma alone, and Dennis Booker was the ideal choice. In sharp contrast to Tom Hansen's erect appearance, Booker stood out with his disheveled hair, leather jacket, torn pants, and rebellious demeanor. Booker ignited passionate fan debate in the span of a few episodes. Booker, in contrast to the youthful, idealistic officer Hansen, who obeyed the law, relied on instinct, dared to question authority, and routinely disobeyed orders. The result was a noticeable schism among the viewers. Team Grieco versus Team Depp. As soon as Fox spotted the advertising opportunity, they transformed the competition into a winning marketing tactic. Edited to look like a covert battle between the show's two male leads, the teasers piqued interest and attracted a huge audience. The chemistry between Depp and Grieco wasn't fictitious, though. Depp had become resentful of the renown that 21 Jump Street had bestowed upon him, while Grieco was enjoying his ascent to popularity, and this resentment manifested itself on set, as Grieco would later disclose. The entrance of Grieco, who dared to take the limelight away from Depp, further added to his unease about being perceived as simply another teen idol. Hansen and Booker's on-screen conflicts were realistically heightened by the fact that the two weren't amicable off-screen. Grieco, nevertheless, was no Johnny Depp imitator, and he immediately established Dennis Booker as an individual with his own unique personality. He was more than simply another troublemaker. The performance took on a rougher, more rebellious tone with Booker, and above all else, it was a huge hit with the crowd. Few could boast after only one season that Grieco had become the most memorable cast member after Depp. Fox made a daring move after realizing his immense potential that a brand new Grieco Booker series was given the go-ahead. At the time, it was a groundbreaking decision to have a TV show's supporting character become so popular that he warranted his own spin-off. It was more than just evidence of Grieco's fame. It was a validation of his acting chops. In the span of a few short years, he went from being a model to an actor and was soon the star of his own TV series. The pressure and expectations around Grieco's spectacular triumph were enormous. Could he sustain his momentum now that he had left the 21st floor? On the other hand, would this be his career's pinnacle? Richard Grieco's ability to become a genuine superstar would be decided by Booker, the greatest test he had to face. Booker, which premiered in 1989, featured fictional character Dennis Booker as he transitioned from police officer to private investigator for a multinational organization. With a sassy, rule-breaking protagonist, the show embraced a modern noir aesthetic. There was number 21 Jump Street spin-off involved. It was a whole fresh narrative, more sinister, daring, and centered on instances with complex psychological underpinnings. Many were optimistic after watching Booker's pilot. Grieco kept his charismatic good looks while channeling his inner bad boy with an air of mystery and unpredictability. The ratings were consistent, and Fox persisted in promoting him as the upcoming major rival in Hollywood. Unfortunately, a power struggle in the background brought the concert crashing down at the same moment it was getting going. The one season of Booker wasn't a bust, either in terms of quality of content or audience size. With the show's consistent viewership, Grieco's position as a top TV personality was further cemented. Therefore, why was it scrapped? Fox and Stephen J. Cannell, the brains of 21, Jump Street and Booker, were at odds, and that's where the answer lies. Cannell adamantly refused to cede ownership of the foreign airing rights to Fox. Booker had the chance to become a multi-million-dollar asset in foreign markets, what with 21, Jump Street already being a worldwide hit. Cannell refused to relinquish the rights, so Fox decided to end the impasse by canceling both shows at the same time. Grieco was treated as a mere pawn in this commercial purging, which had little to do with quality. The worst part was that Grieco didn't find out about the power struggle happening behind the scenes until it was too late. He revealed in subsequent interviews that he was unable to save the program. There had been no opportunity for negotiation since the choice had been made so long ago. He even had his own series at one point. He was down to 0 the following day. This wasn't simply Grieco's first career-crushing defeat. The lesson of Hollywood's insensitivity was painful. Richard Grieco didn't have time to mope after being left out in the cold by television with the cancellation of Booker. The next year, in 1991, he made his big screen debut in the action comedy, If Looks Could Kill, aimed squarely at a younger audience and reminiscent of James Bond films. He had the opportunity of a lifetime to demonstrate that he could star in a full-scale Hollywood blockbuster, not simply a TV show. Played by Grieco, the film follows high school student Michael Corbin as he becomes entangled in a perilous international espionage scheme after being falsely identified as a professional spy. The film was conceived as an action-packed spy adventure, replete with thrilling vehicle chases, cutting-edge technology, and, of course, plenty opportunities for Grieco to display his undeniable charisma and attractiveness. While there were some enjoyable parts of If Looks Could Kill, the film ultimately bombed at the box office. Opinions on the film were divided. Although some thought it was a lot of fun, others thought the plot was too shallow and didn't go deep enough. Even more crucially, viewers weren't prepared to accept Grieco as a leading action star. Unfortunately, this film failed to dispel the association between him with the Dennis Booker character. But Grieco kept attempting to show everyone that he was right. Mobsters, an even more daring undertaking, was his reappearance a few months later. Mobsters gave him the chance to show off his acting chops, in contrast to the flop, If Looks Could Kill. Christian Slater, Patrick Dempsey, Costas Mandylor, and Richard Grieco were among the most sought-after young actors in this crime thriller set in the Mafia. He portrayed Bugsy Siegel, a legendary American gangster from real life, notorious for both his savagery and his charming charisma. Playing the dual role of the dashing gentleman and the icy killer was Grieco's most challenging role to that point. The advertising for the picture portrayed it as a fresh, young spin on old mob films like Goodfellas and The Godfather. Unfortunately, the film's promising ensemble was not enough to match the illustrious legacy of those legendary filmmakers. The picture itself was critically unacclaimed, although Grieco's performance was far better received than his earlier efforts. His actions spoke louder than his words. He was capable of playing multi-role parts with substantial emotional impact. After that, he started to lose his hold on the Hollywood spotlight and didn't get any big jobs. He swiftly changed direction to investigate an alternate route, though. Grieco embarked on a new path in 1994 when his acting career hit a wall by forming the Dunmayer Band and signing a recording deal with the German Edel record company. Considering his continued prominence as a TV actor rather than a genuine musician, it was a daring decision on his part. His goal in releasing Waiting for the Sky to Fall, 1995 a year later, was to start a new chapter in his career. Unfortunately, not everything worked out. Although there was considerable enthusiasm from dedicated listeners, the record was not commercially successful and did not launch his career. Even after all this time, Grieco was still more popular on TV than in front of the microphone, and nobody took him seriously as a singer. He tried to prove his musical prowess and break out of the mold again in February 2004 when he formed Wasteland Park. However, events were rehashed. The band failed to break through, garnered minimal attention, and failed to aid Grieco in escaping the specter of his acting career. Grieco finally came to terms with reality after years of trying without success. He abandoned his musical career, packed up his studio gear, and pursued other interests. Grieco wasn't merely a lucky star, even though he failed to achieve success. An authentic artist, he dared to push himself to his limits, even when doing so brought about setbacks. If Richard Grieco's foray at music was a bust, then painting was his calling. Stage lights were no longer visible. The high hopes of Hollywood were dashed. When he was creating art, he could let his emotions flow freely without inhibition. Grieco started painting in 1987, while his acting career was at its peak, but this wasn't some obscure pastime of a famous person trying their hand at something else. Painting allowed him to release pent-up feelings that were too painful to verbalize. He found solace in his canvases, a refuge from the scrutiny and pressures of celebrity, where he could express himself authentically and without reservation. Even though he always loved art, he didn't decide to show the world his creations until 2009. The legendary Hollywood actor and talented painter Dennis Hopper was the one who gave him the confidence to accomplish it. Hopper encouraged Grieco to quit being shy about his talent once he noticed something unique in his paintings. Hopper claims that Grieco had others in mind when he created paintings. The objective was to find people who could relate emotionally. However, Grieco would not gain the self-assurance to follow that recommendation for another decade. His maiden solo exhibition took place at Hollywood's Gallery Sparta in February 2013. It wasn't like any previous art exhibition. A sense of community was present, fueled by the Fallen, which provides assistance to military and law enforcement people. A percentage of the proceeds from Grieco's pieces were donated to Wolf Connection, an organization that rescues wolves. It was obvious that Grieco wasn't merely showing off his artwork. He hoped it would change people's lives for the better in some tangible way. Abstract emotionalism is what Grieco describes his approach. He makes no effort to paint accurately or realistically portray the world. On the contrary, he uses texture, color, and lines to express his emotions. Grieco does not assign a specific meaning to each of his paintings. One's interpretation is entirely up to them. As one person experiences joy or anger, another may perceive solitude. Grieco's art is powerful in that way. It is not defining. It lets one's spirit roam freely. It is not necessary for Hollywood to endorse Grieco's work for it to be valuable, unlike in the music and acting industries where popularity is determined by chart positions and box office receipts. Nobody should buy one of his paintings. Just those with a sensitive enough heart should try them. An achievement was effortless. As a non-mainstream artist, he achieved an astonishing $10,900 for one of his early pieces. Even his most trusted entertainment industry colleagues were taken aback by his Gallery Sparta show. Grieco played golf with the legendary singer Johnny Mathis, who later said he was unaware of Grieco's artistic abilities. Our sole interaction was on the golf course. Little did I know that he harbored a vast emotional and creative universe within. A large number of showgoers were immediately captivated by Grieco's pieces. Considering the unedited, genuine emotion conveyed by the photographs alone is enough to justify their significance. Unlike other artists, Grieco isn't in it for the money. Commercial products are not his art. He incorporates them into himself. So, it's not just admirers that buy into Grieco's reputation. The people who possess his paintings are the ones who really relate to it. Each of his works is more than just an image because of his innovative processes, such as shaping the canvas beneath to create unique textures that it takes on a more immersive, three-dimensional quality. Because, for Grieco, art isn't about getting anywhere. He is constantly trying new things and making art. The story revolves around the quest for knowledge. Richard Grieco has dabbled in numerous forms of art, from modeling and acting to music and actual painting, but he found inner calm through the medium. Like his life, his profession was full of ups and downs, successes and failures. Although Richard Grieco never tied the knot, his romantic life was filled with intense feelings, storms, and disappointments. Although he had strong feelings for a number of famous ladies, none of them could permanently anchor him to one place. Christina Applegate, who starred in Married with Children, was Grieco's girlfriend in 1988. The couple's nearly two-year relationship came to an end in the latter half of 1989, shortly after the arrival of Canadian model and actress Kimber Sissons. With phases of commitment spanning over a decade, Grieco's engagement with Kimber was one of his longest. They started dating in 1989, while Grieco was just starting out at Booker. Despite going their separate ways multiple times, they eventually reconciled. Even throughout Kimber's brief marriage, Grieco was in multiple relationships at once, including one with Kimber. Katie Wagner, the daughter of actor Robert Wagner, was his girlfriend in 1993. Before breaking up, the couple lived together for a short time and made an appearance at the Sliver premiere together. While touring Europe that year for interviews, he crossed paths with French actress Adeline Blondiau. It was instantaneous adoration. Grieco even got to meet her family during their time spent traveling across France. They stayed in touch for a while after the romance ended, but the enormous distance made it untenable. Terry Farrell, who starred in Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, and Grieco had a tumultuous romance from 1993 to 1994. Grieco wasn't prepared for marriage, but Farrell desired stability. Distancing themselves for so long during filming only served to heighten tensions. Grieco contended he had never cheated, but Farrell grew envious and distrustful of his faithfulness. He decided to end the relationship for good at the end. After meeting on the set of Heaven or Vegas in 1996, Grieco and Yasmin Bleeth became inseparable. After dating from 1996 to 1997, they split up but got back together in 1998. Being in a relationship where both parties were fighting their own demons was one of the most dramatic and stressful experiences of his life. While Grieco was engrossed in booze, Yasmin battled with drug addiction. Their relationship became poisonous due to their incessant bickering and self-destructive actions, despite their profound love for one another. After getting engaged and moving in together in 1998, their relationship fell apart by February. Grieco had a brief relationship with Kimber Sissons before reconciling with Yasmin in 1998. In May of 1999, their son Dylan Justice Sissons was born. Grieco started supporting Dylan after a DNA test proved he was the father, despite his initial doubts about the paternity. Nevertheless, Kimber decided to go to court in February 2003 after hearing rumors that Grieco had been non-compliant with child support payments for approximately a year. She had planned to have him foreclosed on, but Grieco sold the house fast to pay off the loan. On top of that, he made apologies by buying Dylan a plethora of Christmas presents. Even though they'd been together for a long time, Kimber and Grieco broke up for good in 1998 and never got back together. Stephanie Nisnik, who rose to fame on Everwood, began dating Grieco in 2002. Although they rarely spoke about their personal lives, they frequently appeared together at charitable functions. They appeared to be one of the few steady couples in Grieco's generally disorderly existence for a while. But in 2007, they secretly broke up without explaining themselves to anyone. Their friends and family in Germany refuted the rumors that they had a daughter in 2002, but the rumors persisted anyway. Lynette Walden, his co-star in Mobsters, was one of Grieco's brief lovers, among others. His partnerships lasted longer. They went their separate ways after a brief romance, during which she moved in with him, and they even got engaged. Richard Grieco was never married, despite his many famous romances. Perhaps he was never truly prepared to be confined, or perhaps the ever-changing nature of a man's existence simply did not let him to remain in one spot for an extended period. Over the course of the 2000s, he progressively faded from view, leaving many to speculate. The man who was supposedly Johnny Depp's rival, what became of him? Whispers started circulating. Some said that Grieco's life was spinning out of control due to his excessive drinking, all-night partying, and sabotaging his own profession. Some thought he had just lost interest in performing or that he had been ignored by an industry that was always looking for new talent. Grieco, however, never verified anything despite the abundance of rumors. As he persisted in living his life according to his own terms, he decided to remain silent and let the rumors to pass. Grieco kept a solid financial foundation even though he was no longer at the top. His wealth comes from a variety of sources and is believed to be over $4,000,000 to various sources of income, including royalties from films like 21, Jump Street, and Booker, as well as gains from his artwork and other ventures throughout the years. Though he was unable to maintain the same level of fame as some of his contemporaries, Richard Grieco certainly made an impression. In 21, Jump Street, Dennis Booker was more than simply a supporting player. His iconic status as a bad boy in the late 1980s set the stage for subsequent depictions of defiant police officers in popular culture. Booker, Fox's spin-off series starring Grieco, was a rare treat for supporting actors and a tribute to Grieco's incredible star power during his prime. His career in films didn't take off like he had hoped, but for those of us who were kids in the 90s, films like If Looks Could Kill and Mobsters are defining moments. Both 21, Jump Street, and Booker, which Grieco helped create, featured numerous popular modern songs, adding to the trend of rock music combining with television. Despite the failure of his musical career, Grieco left an indelible mark on the art world. He became known for his unique kind of abstract emotionalism, which prioritized raw feelings over realistic depictions. In addition to fetching hefty sums, his paintings provided a novel viewpoint on the potential for art to transcend conventional boundaries. Above all else, Richard Grieco is emblematic of the Hollywood A-listers of his period who forged their own way rather than follow the industry's prescribed formula. He was a multi-talented, rule-defying artist who relentlessly pursued creative expression, whether he was at the peak of his celebrity or working behind the scenes. He lived life according to his own terms. Richard Grieco is still very much involved in the arts and all things creative, even though he is no longer a famous actor. Living in Los Angeles at the moment, he devotes the vast majority of his time to making art in his home studio. One of his lifelong goals is to have an exhibition of his abstract emotive paintings, which he has created in his own unique manner. Grieco was able to support his artistic career independently of Hollywood thanks to the tremendous demand for his paintings, which fetched significant prices at auction. Grieco continues to be involved in smaller cinema projects, both producing and directing independent features, in addition to his painting. Comic-Con events are another frequent meeting place for him and his devoted 21, Jump Street, and Booker fans. He uses social media, particularly Instagram, to keep in touch with his followers and show them his artwork, progress on new projects, and personal life. Grieco maintains his imposing charisma and formidable character even if his prime has long since gone. A love for art that knows no bounds has led him to a life that is less hectic and more purposeful recently. Former Hollywood star Richard Grieco decided to vanish rather than battle for continued fame. He wished for a life unencumbered by the demands of fame and the opinions of others, not because he had failed. That was his decision, to forego marriage, the pursuit of fame, and the desperate clinging to the spotlight. Was it, however, the best decision? He may have discovered something considerably more valuable, a life lived according to his own terms, in the process of losing everything, according to others. He was free to do as he pleased now that he was no longer beholden to Hollywood. Richard Grieco's lifestyle, what are your thoughts on it? A passionate, unrestrained life devoid of marriage and celebrity. In what ways is that a failure or an achievement? Feel free to provide your opinions in the space provided. Also, be sure to check out Richard Grieco's Instagram feed for all the latest updates on his projects. In this ongoing quest to unearth the most intriguing tales from Hollywood, we want you to like, subscribe, and join us.